Hi, my name is Nicolas Gomez, or Nico. I'm responsible for the ETF and index investments business for BlackRock in Latin America, as well as product development. I've been with the company for 16 years. Very well. So before answering in depth this question, it's important to understand that it's not really about active versus indexing or active versus passive. The biggest trend in the ETF industry is active managers using ETFs to build active asset allocation portfolios. So it's about active with passive. Now, when you think about new products and areas of development in terms of product, I would categorize it in two ways. One is around the development of more specific exposures to the market, more building blocks to build portfolios. Think of ETFs for artificial intelligence, for biotech, for electric cars. So more specific parts of the market. So that's one trend. And the other trend is our ETFs that do not have just one type of asset class inside when you think about equity or fixed income, but what we call multi-asset ETFs, which means that inside the ETF you have fixed income, you have equity, you can have commodities. So those are the two types of products in the context of product trends. So when I think about product innovation in the ETF space, I would name two. The first one is around fixed income ETFs. When you think about fixed income ETFs, what you're doing is you're bringing an asset that trades over the counter, you're bringing it into the equity market to trade in the exchange. So bringing fixed income, bringing the world of bonds into the capital markets, into ETFs, has been one of the biggest revolutions in the asset management industry and one of the areas where we're seeing the most growth, fixed income ETFs. And the second one, I would say, it's around mega trends. And these are, as humanity is evolving, and there are new trends in the market, these are ETFs that give you a way to invest in the long term for this type of trends. Think of artificial intelligence, think of blockchain, think of cybersecurity, think of aging population. So these are new things that are happening in humanity for which there are now ETFs that you can invest there in innovation for the long term. So multi-asset ETFs. So like the world describe it, a multi-asset ETF is an ETF that has many different assets inside versus an ETF that only has equities or an ETF that only has a fixed income inside or an ETF that only has commodities inside. So basically, instead of the investor kind of deciding how much equities, how much fixed income, and how much of other asset classes I want to have, the ETF does it for the investor automatically. And basically, depending on the risk profile of the investor or the time horizon of the investment of the investor, there's different ETFs that make sense according to those preferences for the investor. Being anywhere from a very conservative ETF that has a lot of exposure to fixed income to more moderate to more aggressive, where you start having more and more equities. The importance and the benefits for the Brazilian investor about having multi-asset ETFs is that the investor doesn't have to think about how much of the different ETFs you need to own to build the correct portfolio. what the investor needs to decide is what profile of an investor he or she is, and according to that profile, right, depending on how comfortable you feel with volatility, that's the variation in the prices of a portfolio, or depending on for how long you're gonna invest, right, that defines what kind of investor you are. So if you are an investor that is invested in the long term, it is broadly understood that over the long term, equities perform better than fixed income. But with the trade-off that equities move up and down in value more, so they have more volatility. So if you're a long-term investor, or if you're an investor that feels more comfortable with volatility, a portfolio that has more equity makes sense. However, if you are an investor that just don't feel comfortable with the movement of the valuation of your portfolio, or an investor that has a very short-term horizon, I want the money back in a few months, in 6 months, in 8 months, then for that investor, a portfolio that has more fixed income makes more sense. So what it does is you define what kind of investor you are. Am I a conservative investor that don't like volatility and I'm investing in the short term? Then a multi-asset ETF for a conservative investor makes sense. Or on the other hand, if I'm a young investor, I'm investing for a very long term, I don't care about the movement of the market today or tomorrow or next month or next year because I'm really investing for the future, right? Then that is the profile of a more aggressive, a more growthy a portfolio, and a multi-asset ETF for that profile would work best for that type of investor. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching this video. And remember, the most important thing about investments is diversification. So whether it's diversification in terms of different asset classes, also diversification into other markets. We know very well the Brazilian market. It's important to invest outside of Brazil as well to build a very well built portfolio that is diversified. If you have any more questions, if you want to learn more, please visit our website.